Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us this week on Have You Heard? Armor Animal Health video series. I am Keil, your Territory Manager in Wisconsin. A little bit about myself. I've been with Animart, now Armor Animal Health, for over 30 years. I reside outside of Beaver Dam on a small cow-calf beef operation. Let me know where you're from, all over the United States or wherever you're checking in with us from. This week, we have Jesse McCoy, Business Unit Specialist for Water Treatment with Neogen, joining us on our program to talk about water treatment on a dairy cattle and dairy farm. Articles and conversations on water treatment seem to be on the rise lately in our industry. If you've wondered how to reduce labor on your farm, reduce water usage and waste, improve efficiencies on your farm, then today you'll want to tune in. I've been told this is one subject that everyone can agree on, even people outside of the dairy industry. Water is always a topic on everyone's mind. Well, it looks like we have viewers checking in with us. We'll get started shortly. We've got some people also from Beaver Dam checking in with us. Wanakee, Wisconsin, Allman, Wisconsin, Helensville, Wisconsin. Hello, everyone out there. Just keep letting me know where you're from and chime me in. At any point during this presentation, if you have any questions to be asked, please send those messages in also. We'll try to answer those as we go along through the day. If we're not able to answer them through the presentation, we'll try to answer them afterwards also. And if you're just going to watch this on your own after, not live, please feel free to message us, and we'll get back to you also on those questions. Well, thank you again for joining us. We know your time is valuable, so I want to go ahead and get started today's topic. Again, today we have the Business Unit Specialist with Water Treatment from Neogen, Jesse McCoy, joining us. Jesse has been with Neogen since 2017. He's a certified water specialist working exclusively with the animal agricultural industry since 1998. His experience ranges from regulatory and R&D all the way to implementation of practical water treatment systems on the farm. Jesse, we're so excited to see you here today. Tell me a little bit more about yourself.
Wayne, I appreciate you having me on. I was the guy that grew up in a town surrounded by poultry farmers and poultry plants and decided I was never going to go into the poultry industry. And then here I am 20 years later, and all I do is go see poultry, swine, and dairy and cattle producers, and I look at their water treatment systems, look at their needs that they have, and then help them find solutions. And part of it's, inventing and researching new technologies, and a lot of it now is how to implement those out into the field.
Well, thank you, Jesse, and welcome. Today, we're going to ask you to send in your questions, just put them in the messages, and we're going to give away an Armor sweatshirt at the end of the presentation to those of you who have the best question. So let's get started. Although many of our viewers may already be familiar with why they should look at water quality and all the news about some high-profile dairies and that can no longer operate because of contaminated water, can you give us a refresher on the importance of water and why we're here today to talk about water?
Yeah, thanks, Wayne. I think it's really important that everybody remember, we're out there selling milk off these dairies, and 87% of milk, on average, is water. And when we talk about those cows on the hoof, 75% of their body weight is water. So at the end of the day, we're all in the water business. And so if we can be more efficient at using that water, whether that means, getting the cows to drink more water so they can produce more milk, having them have less wastage because they're not refusing it for taste and odor or something like that, less wastage when we're out cleaning it, less pathogens so that we've got more calories in that cow to go towards making milk as opposed to fighting those diseases, fewer medications, just keeping that dairy running more efficiently and focusing on water, because we're in the water business. The product that we sell is more water than anything else.
It's very interesting information, Jesse. My question for you is, does it matter if you're a small operation or a large operation, number of cows, how will this affect any size dairy?
Well, the great thing is that treatment of water is scalable. I've got customers that are 100 cal dairies. I've got customers that are 10,000 cal dairies. I've got customers that are 100,000 cal calf sites, right? If we're supplying water into these dairies, which we all are, then we have the ability to treat, 1 gallon of water to 1 million gallons of water. And so that is really infinitely scalable lower and infinitely scalable higher. It's just what type of equipment are you going to use to do that treatment with?
So the biggest question I'm sure producers are asking is, what's the cost on treating my water? Is it a minimal cost? Is it, going to cost me $1 million to put this system in to treat my water?
I think that's one of the things that I fight on a daily basis, right? Most people at this point have talked to somebody about water, knows another producer that they talk to often has talked to somebody about water. And what they typically have heard is, this filter system is going to cost you $100,000. This reverse osmosis system is going to cost you $250,000. And at the end of the day, it really doesn't take that much money to treat water for the things that we can treat with and get a return on investment with. We're all working at these dairies and it's a business, and that means it's got to make money. We have to have a return on investment. Our typical system, capital cost is going to be $1,000 to $2,000, and then the chemical cost is just that, the chemical cost, right? And that's, again, probably going to be in the $2,000 to $3,000 range, depending on what size operation it is. We've actually looked in part of the programs that we do, we generally supply the equipment so you don't have that capital cost. We found that, number one, it's easier for people to swallow if they don't have that upfront capital cost. Number two, I know that you're going to use the right equipment, and equipment that's robust and supposed to be on a farm, instead of equipment that maybe we borrowed off the shelf from home units or something like that. That's not designed to work in those environments. But I would say, by and large, no, it's not going to cost you $1 million. In fact, I'd be really surprised if it costs you 2 decimal points close to $1 million based on what we have out there now.
That's a good point, Jesse. In fact, I've done one dairy particular we ran on 500 cows, and I did the calculations off of their usage, and it roughly came out to about 3 cents per head per day. On the cows, not even bringing in the number of calves and young stock that's going to also. Do you normally find it, I've heard from that 2 to 4 cents per head per day?
That's typically what we're looking at. A lot of it's dependent on what they need. And so, we're designing these systems to fit the farm instead of trying to fit the farm into a system, right? We don't have a black box on the shelf that comes in and we tell you it fixes everybody's water in the state. That doesn't really exist. It certainly doesn't exist for less than $1 million. So depending on what the expectations are and what the needs of that farm is, will determine what those costs are. But that 2 to 4 cents sounds right in line with what we see right now.
Yeah, exactly, Jesse. As you mentioned, I think it sounds like you're talking about you customize the solution for every farm, depends on their water test and what they need treated and what they're trying to prevent. How is it, how do you find out what they need to use as far as product dosage?
It comes from 2 things. Number one, we take a water sample, and we're going to ask you to take 2 samples. I want you to take one up front at the start of that line where you've probably taken a sample already. And then I want you to go to the last trough, the last drinker, wherever you think you're going to pull the worst looking water that the cows are going to drink. And I want you to take a sample there. And I want you to take that sample as if you were a cow. We're really trying to determine what that cow's drinking so we can design for that. So that means taking a sample bottle, putting a glove on, not contaminating the bottle, but dipping it down in there. And I think, people listening are probably going to think, oh, well, I'm going to get that junk on the top that I see floating. I'm going to get that green stuff that's growing on the side of the troughs in there. And the answer is yes, I want you to. I want to know what's in there. I want to know what your cows are drinking, because your cows aren't, somehow not getting that scum in their mouth, and, they're getting everything attributed to the green stuff on the side of their trough. We really want to know what's happening. So that's the first part, is determining what's there. And then the second part is talking to that grower and understanding What do they expect to change? What are they trying to fix? Because that will help us determine the chemistries and the processes that will set that water up in that way. So is it custom? Yes, in a way. And I would call it semi-custom because we know there's certain chemistries and things that we can implement that we've had success with in the past, that there's data behind. And so we probably think it might be chlorine dioxide, or we think it might be peroxide. We're pretty sure it's not going to be reverse osmosis, right? But we're going to take what the producer expects and take the water that they have and put together a semi-custom solution for them.
Exactly, Jesse. And this is a chlorine dioxide solution. So it's two parts going together. That's when you're talking about the metered system and the upfront cost of the meters. And then setting them all directly for each farm differently, how they need it set. Now, the product going in, is there some, I guess my question is there any harm to the equipment at the farms or people on the site, drinking the water per se, or what are the goods and bads of chlorine dioxide?
Yeah, so chlorine dioxide we've really seen, emerge as the leader in the drinking water treatment chemistry right now. The way we do it at Neogen is we have gone through the labels and the validation so that not only do we have animal drinking on those products, and it's right, there's a chlorine dioxide precursor, and then there's an activator that goes with it. We've got human labels on that. We've got NSF labels on that. As far as, if someone were to drink it at the end of the line out of a garden hose, which, probably the producer's not watching, are doing, but, maybe someone is. We have those registrations to go above and beyond just cattle drinking water. So if a human drinks it, we have those human drinking water claims. And then as far as working with the equipment or other processes, if somebody wanted to treat all the water at the farm, the EPA actually views this treatment as water once it gets into the water at use dilutions. So if that water spills, you don't have a chemical spill, you have a water spill. If that water mixes with another chemistry, you don't have to worry about a reaction because it's still water. And that allows us, and the time that we put behind getting those, and in fact, we've got organic registration on our chlorine dioxide precursor. The time that we've put into that really makes things easier for producers because you don't have to worry about, what happens if this treated water goes somewhere that we didn't expect it to go.
So the Neogen system and the one that Armor Animal Health is setting up at these farms, how does it differ from some of the other systems out in the industry? Sarah posted a question. She was kind of curious some of the differences between yours and other systems for treating water.
I think, at the chemical level, chlorine dioxide is chlorine dioxide. But when you talk about how you implement that, we've spent a lot of time engineering the routine maintenance and day-to-day out of that system. We've made it so we don't want you to have to touch it every day. We don't want you to have to, be exposed to those chemicals every day. We measure the water going through. It tells the pump to run a certain rate. So we're treating every gallon of water, whether it's 1 gallon a minute or 100 gallons a minute, we're treating them all the same. I don't want you to touch a chemical. I want you to take that empty jug out, put a full jug underneath, and the pump's going to prime itself and run. I don't want you to be exposed to those chemistries, and the other systems that are out there don't have those safety factors around them. We do all of our generation in a closed system that then forces all the chlorine dioxide into the water instead of giving it the opportunity to gas off. Not only is that a safety issue, but we see a lot of workrooms where systems are that have a lot of rust that have come from the gas coming out of that generation process. And if you're getting gas not going into the water, then you're actually watching your money evaporate because you're buying that gas to go into the water and treat it. So we're utilizing all of the chemistry in the water, not only from a safety factor, but from an economics factor. You're getting all the money you spent into that water line.
Well, Jesse, there's another question from Jim that came in. I know I've heard this question before also. Hydrogen peroxide systems, how does this vary compared to a hydrogen peroxide pump system?
So If you're using a hydrogen peroxide pump system right now, you're probably using very similar pumps, mirroring pumps to put them in. The biggest difference, since chemically they're both oxidants, is chlorine dioxide is significantly cheaper when you look at cost per treated gallon to peroxide. Do they both disinfect? Yes. Are they both adding oxygen into that water? Yes. But chlorine dioxide, to be effective, you're talking about running in the 1 to 2 part per million range. For hydrogen peroxide to be effective, you're talking about the 30 to 50 part per million range. One of the largest issues I've seen in the dairy industry, people put in a hydrogen peroxide system, they get it set up to start, it's costing them too much money because it is expensive, so they turn it down. And then they start running in that 10 to 15 part per million range, and that's not enough to get it to the cow, right? We don't care about, is that water disinfected up to the trough? We care about, is that water disinfected in the trough? And that's where you're going to get contamination back into it. So really, cost is the biggest difference. The other is hydrogen peroxide, because it's an oxidant, reacts very quickly. It doesn't have a great shelf life inside the water it used solutions. Chlorine dioxide is significantly different in that it does a great job of sticking around in that water. And so you don't have to run a bunch of extra chemistry up front to say, get your 30 to 50 parts on peroxide. You might need 100 parts up front. To get your 1 to 2 parts of chlorine dioxide in the trough, you might need 1.5 or 2 parts to still have 1.5 to 2 parts left in the water when it gets to the cow. It just sticks around so much longer.
Well, Jesse, it sounds like you've done a lot of work with producers at this point in the dairy industry. What do you hear from producers after implementation? What kind of results are you seeing, or are they telling you?
Well, it's funny because our industry is very much no news is good news, right? So I don't hear that much. Short of probably the largest thing I hear is I don't have to clean my drinkers anymore. I don't have to clean that trough. I don't spend those 2 days a week that I used to spend emptying those troughs out. By far, I hear that from every producer I've ever worked with. That's their indicator. Hey, it's working. I'm good. I do have some producers that I don't want to say they want to brag, but they want to talk about how successful they've been with it, with more milk or better bonuses on somatic cell count reductions and things like that. But everybody has their treatment system set up for different reasons. Some people are going after components, some are going after volume, some are going after less medication usage, and we set them up that way. So I hear a lot of more milk. I hear a lot of more bonuses. I hear a whole lot of, I can see the bottom of my troughs. I hear there's not as much water around the trough anymore because they're not trying to fling it out, right? They're not playing with it, they're actually drinking it. And I hear a lot of medication reduction, right? Being able to milk cows that they didn't used to be able to milk. People talking about, I used to have a hospital pen with 50 cows in it, and now I might have 1 or 2, and it's typically for a hoof, not an actual medication issue. So that's what I typically hear out of producers.
Jesse, I also, producers want to see payback on their products a lot of time. So it's hard to pinpoint milk production, but, we correlate water intake going up means more feed intake going up means more production by cows. There's so many variables around production by cows, but that's the idea of clean water is so they drink more water, they eat more feed, they produce more milk. So, with so many different variables around producing milk, that's kind of what we have in mind when we're treating water, correct?
Yes, and I've got some people that, it's just not a variable for them anymore. They don't worry about it, right? And so the labor savings of not chasing water down this rabbit hole allows them to really hone in and focus on, all right, how do I get above average at this co-op when I'm looking at everybody else? What are they doing that I'm not doing? But yeah, it totally goes back to normal nutrition, feed, light, air, water, right? That's what it takes to get something to live. If we have them drink more water, they're going to eat more feed. If everything else stays the same, we know they're going to get more milk. And so we're just trying to fine tune that Cadillac of a cow that we have now to let her thrive instead of just survive.
Jesse, to get started on this program or to get more information on the system itself and chlorine dioxide treatment through Armor and Neogen, how can they go about doing that?
I think the easiest thing is to reach out to somebody like you, right? It's been successful to this point where if you are a producer and thinking you want to take a look at water, reach out to your Armor rep. They'll get you the sample containers that you need and get everything taken. But the first thing to do is to take that sample. And then Neogen and Armor have really worked together well as partners on that, on exchanging the data, understanding what people are looking for. So I'd say talk to your Armor rep, talk to your veterinarian, your nutritionist, whomever, and tell them that you're interested in it. And then we'll get hooked up and get moving.
Well, thanks, Jesse. In fact, I've got a short video clip of one of the farms that has installed 2 pumps. One was started with their calf, their young stock operation in one well, and another one in the dairy operation for their cows. So we're going to play this short clip on that, and you'll hear a little clicking in the background. We're doing the pump room, so that's the pumps pumping the chlorine dioxide product into the water system. So that'll be in the background, and then we'll take some questions afterwards also. We're at Clover Hill Dairy in Campbellsport, Wisconsin. And one of the owners, Joe Bonlander, and his nutritionist, Bill Foley, are there. And I've asked them a few questions, and they've detailed why they wanted to do it and what they saw we're hoping to see for results. The Bonlander, or the Clover Hill Dairy operation, is 2,000 cows and about 3,000 head of young stock also in this operation. So we've got a large number of head that they're treating the product with. So we'll go ahead and play that video here. Good afternoon. This is Wayne Keil with Armor Animal Health. I'm here this afternoon with Joe Bonlander. He is the partner at Clover Hill Dairy out in Campbellsport, Wisconsin. And Bill Foley. He's the nutritionist here at Clover Hill Dairy with the Standard Dairy Consultants. Good afternoon, both of you guys.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
I'm going to let Joe describe first why he wanted to put in the Neogen water treatment program and what he was trying to get out of using that system in his water. Joe?
Well, I think we were just looking for healthier animals. We had a few minor things going on in some of our weaned calves, and just felt there was something we could do maybe to improve our quality of our heifers coming out of here. So I guess we turned it over to Bill at that point, and we talked to him, and he kind of pointed us in the direction of a product similar to this.
Perfect, yes. I think animal health is a big thing in this dairy. Bill, would you explain what you were trying to see for results and the ideas of what you're trying to maybe help for problems at the farm?
Well, when it was brought to my attention, the calves that they have in the facilities here that are directed water from this particular well that we're at right now, they were having issues with scours that they said was directly caused by a parasitic infection called Giardia. And so we were just trying to approach different aspects that could affect that negatively or positively. And one of the questions I'd asked him, I knew these were new facilities, I said, have you ever checked your water yet? And they said they hadn't, so we did analysis of the water at several different places, and they all showed high nitrates, which I was a bit concerned about, because with what they were dealing with in the facility, I was concerned that the nitrates would rob them of their oxygen carrying capacity of the calves, which wasn't going to help their immune system or the ability to fight off anything. And they had some higher manganese, which can offer some impurities and palatability issues to water. So we talked about hydrogen peroxide, but I had been reading more and more on this product that you were using or suggesting that he use here, which was the chlorine dioxide. And another thing that caught my interest was when I read up on this particular product, it was supposed to have a very positive effect on parasites that might be present in wells. And so I thought with what they were finding, it would make sense from that standpoint as well to try the chlorine dioxide, because it could potentially help us with this parasitic infection of the Giardia on top of everything else. So we had done some other things with the diets. We'd done some other things with additives to the diets, but we knew this would help complement us and either work as a good teammate or work against us. So that's why we felt we should address the issues that we noticed from the well water test.
Perfect, Bill. Great explanation. Joe, what kind of results do you think you've gotten from it? You've probably been on it for, probably 8 months now.
Yeah, at least, yeah.
We've got 2 wells. This is the calf well we're in right now, and then we did one with the dairy herd also. Give me some of the results you think you've seen with both facilities.
Well, I think the biggest thing we probably have seen is just a very consistent manure out of these young calves here, which obviously is, if you look into the whole growing scheme, you can learn a lot from manure and what it should or shouldn't look like. And I think that has straightened out significantly, and just overall healthier calves. We're happy with
exactly.
it. Yeah.
Bill, you see anything particular on your end either?
Well, obviously the loose manure was a big problem. Calves were definitely not looking very thrifty at all. So it was a big hurdle for us to get over. And we had done some things, like I said, in the diet, and that improved things a lot. And we had a lot less scouring, a lot less issues with the calves, and they were improving in body scores and health status. But I will say, once we got this online, it took them to the next level, and that was the neat thing to see. And now I used to walk through and would see occasional loose piles out of calves. Now I walk through and it's hard to even find them at this point. And the calves just look day and night different from what they did when we first started this whole process.
Good to hear. Good to hear. Thank you both, Joe and Bill, for the time you spent here and for using the product. This is the Neogen water treatment chlorine dioxide setup at Clover Hill Dairy for their calf operation. You see the 2 drums that the product gets mixed into the meters up above and then gets put down into the tea that combines the 2 products to create your chlorine dioxide. It gets injected into the water system, and the flow meter is visible here also. Again, I'd like to thank Joe Bonlander with Clover Hill Dairy and Bill McCoy, his nutritionist, for doing that video with me. It showed a little bit more, and the clicking, like I said, you heard in the background, was the pumps working the product into the water system. Anything to add on that, Jesse?
I think that it really goes back to show the scalability, right? We've got 5,000 cows there, and we're treating them with 2 pumps on the wall that are essentially the size of a shoebox, right? And you just need to have the space for those 2 drums. One drum's blue, one drum's white. You don't even have to be able to read to see it. You can still be colorblind, and the blue one goes where the blue one goes, and the white one goes where the white one goes. So we've really tried to make this as simple for a producer as possible. And I just, appreciate those guys obviously letting you come out and take some video.
Yeah, the most technical thing I found is the one is 2 parts and the other one is 1 part. The activator, you only use 1 part, so you're using twice as much of one than the other. But once you figured that out, it's pretty easy to keep an eye on how much product they're going to go through. A couple questions we had come in between time. So this customer's got some clogged water pipes, maybe some buildup of whatever in there. Is this going to clear out those pipes?
So it will slowly. I would recommend, if you have clogged drinkers, to use a line cleaner to clean those out. We make those as well, and they're easily applied. You can get them from Armor. I know you guys carry them. So it will do it gradually. The question I always get is how fast. And it's like, well, how long does a flashlight work, right? Has it been on for 6 months, or you just turn it on and off? So if you've got 20 years worth of buildup in 20-year-old lines, is it going to happen overnight? No. At the same time, though, if you're using these chlorine dioxide products and using our product to do it, it's going to come out gradually. So you're not going to have, stuck valves or something like that. So I think the answer is yes, but yes, it will work. But if you wanted to do it overnight, you're going to want to use a line cleaner instead.
Yeah, and some of our systems we have set up, we've actually suggested putting filters in, because once it does release some of that buildup inside the pipes, it needs to go somewhere. And a filter system works real nice too to catch all that for future.
If you're not putting a filter in, then your drinkers just became your filter.
Yep, exactly. Another question we had come in, and keep sending your questions in. We'll get to more questions after this presentation today, but another simple question here from Vicky was, in stock tanks, how can you size this down small enough to treat stock tanks versus, the whole water line?
If you wanted to do an individual tank, you could. It's just a matter of getting the right output on that pump, and that's where we'd have a discussion. How big's your stock tank? What's your turnover in that stock tank? How much water are you treating a minute, a day, that type of thing? And yeah, you can go as large or as small as you want. I've got, in other industries, the show pig industry, I've got people with 5 pigs that are on water treatment. And so we're talking about treating 10 gallons a day. It's the same cost as if you were treating 1,000 cows per cow, but you can go as big or as small as you want.
Another question that came in also, can you highlight again some of the details around the setup and the equipment involved? I mean, it's more or less, is there a payment program? Is there do you need to be tied into a long-term contract to use this product? What are your thoughts on that? What kind of programs do you have available for producers?
So for our program for producers, we'll supply the equipment, whatever size that needs to be. If you'll enter into an agreement, we don't call it a contract, we call it an agreement, where you will only run Neogen water treatment chemicals through it. We have some minimums we would like you to hit. But what I typically tell people, especially in the dairy production piece, is we made this for chicken producers. So the minimums are extremely low. We're talking 130 gallons a year for our longer contract, 200 gallons a year for our shorter term contract. So it's not difficult at all for any dairy in the United States. Even if you're a 100 cow hobby dairy that's doing, farmer's market milk, you're going to qualify. So it's really not an issue, I think, that the dairy industry would need to worry about as to whether or not you're going to qualify for our equipment. With that, we supply you the pumps for your chemicals. We supply you the activation chamber. We ask you to supply the water meter. And we basically do that because if you don't have a water meter at this point on your farm, you need one and you should buy it anyway, right? You should be tracking things like water consumption because that's going to give you another indicator on how your herd is operating. I've got plenty of people out there that do veterinary diagnostics off of how much water their animals consume one day to the next. But outside of that, I mean, you saw the system. It's not fancy and it doesn't need to be, right? We're looking for that return on investment, which means we want to have equipment that is suited to that farm. At the end of that agreement, these pumps have a warranty that is the life of the agreement. If you have an issue with that pump while you're still under the agreement, you're going to have a warranty issue. At the end of that agreement, I'm going to tell you, let's do another agreement and get rid of those pumps. Let's get you some new pumps and go forward. Because I want you to always have equipment that's under warranty so that you as a producer don't have to worry about a failure.
Well, thanks once again, Jesse McCoy with Neogen, speaking with us today and explaining the water treatment program. If you do want some more information, we do have a brochure that's available to send out. Just please send us a message with your name and contact information, or send us some more questions. We'll be happy to answer questions afterwards. I guess we're going to wrap things up here, and the video is being recorded, so you can watch it on Facebook and YouTube channel at any time. If you have not been able to see this live, just please look for it there. Please tune in next week also. Next week we'll be having Bear Hansen. He's our Armor hoof trimmer specialist, interviewing a real life hoof trimmer. So this guy's got on-hand knowledge of the ins and outs of trimming hooves, the pluses and minuses. And that's Bear Hansen with Armor. That's going to be talking with him next week, Thursday at 3 p.m. also on Have You Heard? Anything else, Jesse?
I really appreciate you having me on here, and thank you to everybody that's tuned in, and look forward to helping anybody that we can.
Thank you very much.